Hello, my friend. Welcome. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. And this is another edition where we get to talk to somebody awesome about something that is passionate to them and they're going to help us to understand and maybe see something from a new way and a new perspective, which is always awesome. And today I have, it's a doctor, isn't it? Dr. Hina Fatima, which I didn't put doctor in your name. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. But it's Dr. Hina Fatima, and we're talking about intergenerational trauma. So, breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma. Hi, Hina. Welcome.
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you
For
so
sure.
much.
And we talked when we first talked, it was quite a while ago. So,
Mhm.
and I know we talked a lot about why this is a passion for you. So, I'm going to get you to share it with the audience. Like, how did you become I know
The
you're
trauma coach.
NLP and yeah, and how did this all come about? And you can
Oh,
tell them what you are at the same time, I guess.
yes. So, it is interesting. The intergenerational part of it was something that became, it dawned on me very recently. Because a lot of times we don't talk about our parents or especially in my case because my childhood was perfect, in that sense, like there was no abuse or neglect of any kind. Uh, and um, so just a little background first. I am originally from Pakistan. I was born there, I was raised there, I grew up there, I became a doctor there, and then I moved to US, got married here. I have two beautiful daughters here. I live in California. And so when I became a doctor and I moved to US, I just gave my step one, which is the medical licensing exam, when I was expecting my first daughter, and then I was not able to continue that. So I do not, you know, work as a practicing, physician or a clinician here in
Right.
US. And I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 10 years. Then I was fortunate to get a job in clinical research. I worked there for almost 3 years before COVID hit, and
Oh,
that's when I uh, came across NLP. I did NLP, and I did not know about this coaching industry. I did not know that coaching existed. I did not know that this is something that I could do. But once I did NLP, and once I found my calling, and I'm like, it was actually taking me back to what I love doing, what I'm passionate about as a doctor. And so I became a coach. And of course, initially it was like a mental health coach. But then over a period of time, when I started working with people, I niched it down to trauma. And the reason being, because they say that you're able to help people the most with what you've gone through,
right.
right? And for me, my trauma and my traumas actually came back and started affecting me when I moved to US.
Really?
So yes, so I was very young. I was 14 when certain things happened, where women, girls, things happen. But I was well protected. I was well surrounded by family, friends. I was engaged to be married to somebody at that point, because in Pakistan, especially, people think, if a woman or a girl is in a relationship or is engaged to somebody, she's protected, because now
Mm,
men will not pry on her because she already has a man to protect her. And so I was put in that relationship at a very young age, and of course with the permission of my parents and all the family and friends. And when I became a doctor, it didn't go on as they had thought it would. He decided not to continue with this relationship, so we never got married. He moved away, and which is okay. He was young, I was very young myself, he was very young, and of course he has a choice to make his life decisions. This is something which I am aware of right now. In the start, in those days, how we go like, okay, men are not loyal, or they cheat on us, or he just ditched me, he left me. These are the things that we all say, when people break up, right? But today, like, I have this maturity and understanding to say, yes, like, we went in the relationship when I was 19, he was 22. And then 6 years later, 7 years later, like, I am 24, 25, and he is whatever, 28, 29, and he decides not to continue with this relationship. He has the choice, it's his decision, and it's okay. If he is mature enough to decide that this girl is not for me and I want something else in life, who
Right.
am I, or who are we to stop him? So anyways, so these things were happened, and when I came here, all of it affected me. All of it came back. And my poor husband, he became the target of my vulnerabilities, of my wrath, as I would say, and he wouldn't know where it's coming from. He didn't
Right.
know that it was because I felt I was being taken advantage of, or I felt threatened, or I felt, vulnerable, that people will leave me. I had that fear of abandonment somewhere, right? Okay. And so that's why I decided to go into trauma, because when I did NLP, it helped me overcome a lot of my stuff, my confidence issues, my self-worthiness issues, my control over myself, how to express myself, how to set those boundaries, how to say yes, how to say no, how to not react, when I feel like reacting and stuff like that. Coming to intergenerational. Okay.
Hmm.
So when did this dawn upon me? This dawned upon me when I started working with clients. And of course, when clients start coming to you, they're coming with all kinds of backgrounds. Okay. And trauma is not just sexual abuse or childhood neglect or parental abuse or domestic violence, or stuff like that. But that's what we normally assume. That's what I had thought when I started doing this, that this is the kind of people I will be getting. But
I
no.
think that's where people's minds normally go, right? They think it's something big, and
Yes,
it's not always big.
it's not always. And then the trauma is also stuff which happens on everyday basis, people dying, people leaving us, people moving away, loved ones moving away, miscarriages, health issues, right? I even had a client who would miss her friend. She didn't have, she lost her friend. I mean, she didn't die, but the friendship ended when they
Right.
were teenage, and she was still 20 years later mourning her, and she still questioned why this friendship end, and she
Right.
questioned her worth and her capabilities. So anyways, so when I came across several women who had miscarried, and I heard their stories, and it took me back to my mother. So my mother had me after 10 years of her marriage. My parents, they had three miscarriages before me.
Wow.
And the one before me was actually in an ectopic pregnancy, because of which she actually lost one tube and one ovary. So with that one ovary and with that one tube, she conceived me and she gave birth to me. So I was always that, miracle child, that rainbow child, and I was celebrated. Everybody loved me, so I was raised in that environment, where you're loved too much, loved too much, and so that there was this pressure on me to be that perfect child, and that's also one of the things, I talk about, because we don't realize what we're doing with kids when we start putting these expectations, that okay, she's good looking, she's good in her studies, so she's gentle, she's kind hearted, she's generous, she's obedient, and then it creates this facade that you're this perfect child and you can't make mistakes,
Right.
or
It's a
you
lot of pressure for a little kid, right?
or you can't afford to make mistakes, right? As a child, maybe it's okay, but once you become a teenager, it's hard, right? And we know all eyes are on us. Anyways, so growing up, so this is what happened with my mother. Okay, then I was born. After me, my sister was born after 1 year. And then after another 2 years, like 3 years younger to me, is my brother.
So she did end up with three.
She ended up with three. And in fact, when my sister was, when my mother conceived my sister, her doctors had told her that we will not, if you conceive again, like after me, if you conceive again, we will not allow it to happen because you have so many adhesions, you have so many complications. She had like four C-sections, and I mean, so
Oh,
many surgeries, because of all whatever she was going through. And so they were like, your body cannot take it. We will not allow you to have another baby. But when my mother conceived my sister, she was not in Pakistan. She was in Abu Dhabi at that time. She was in UAE. And so, of course, in UAE, they didn't have no rule, or they weren't aware of her history. And they were like, okay. So she was born. And they actually gave my mother this option that let us know that if you have a daughter, we would you want to wait to have another son, or would you want us to just close her up if you have a daughter or a son, something like that. They give her this option.
wow.
So because when my sister, if my brother would have been born at that time, they would probably have closed her because she would be happy, one son, one daughter. But
Right.
because my daughter was born, my father was like, let's give it another chance. I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, at that moment. Like, if I think of it right now, if it being my husband, I would go like, oh, for God's sake, leave me alone. But well, that's how it was. And then of course my mother conceived again, and then my brother was born. And so we're a complete family. And she raised us very well. We all are, doing well in our lives. But of course, we didn't see all that trauma, what it did to her. So in those 10 years before having me, she had adopted a son.
Oh,
She had adopted her sister's son, whom she raised for 6 years. So it was my aunt's third son. So she had given it to my mom when he was just born, a few days old. And so my mother had raised this boy from the day he was born till he was 6, till my sister was born. And when my sister was born, my aunt demanded him back. And then they finally took him back. And so that was actually heartbreaking for everybody. It was a chaos in the family. Everybody was fighting. And
right.
we were little at that time. We were very little. But I now see how that could have affected us. You see, they say a child's mind develops in their early stages, in the first 5-6 years. They actually develop their whole personality in those 5-6 years, what they go through, right? And so things were happening which I wasn't aware of, which were growing inside of me, but I never understood them. I never expressed them because I was well loved. I was well surrounded. I was becoming this doctor. I was this very perfect, good girl. But there was something in there. There was this part in me, okay? And which all came out, after when one thing after the other thing happened, 14, 19, 24, 25, things. And that made me so bitter. I became a very, very angry young woman.
Hmm.
And my husband was the poor, poor, poor target, my current husband. And he had no idea what was happening because I had just come from Pakistan.
Right.
In our culture, we have arranged marriages. So it was an arranged marriage. And he was here. He's an American citizen. He's been living here for the last 30, 35 years. He came here as a young boy. And when he married me and he brought me here, and then my tantrums, as I would say, my tantrums started coming, and my mood swings started hitting, and
The
it,
poor
it,
guy didn't know what he was getting into.
it was horrible. It was horrible, yes. But it was horrible for both of us. It was horrible for me because I was breaking down. And I did not expect this from myself too. I did not know what was happening because I all of a sudden I found myself all alone in a country which was new to me,
It's hard when you change cities, let alone countries. So,
countries, and then you're married. Again, it's hard alone to just marry somebody you love. You know somebody for so long. I didn't know him at all,
right.
right? Uh, so it was a struggle. We both were in that struggle bus, but thank goodness we worked through it. And so, and then there was this, when all of this started happening, a lot of this resentment started coming out against my family. Why? Because I was like, they didn't teach me this. They didn't teach me how to live when I in a hard time. And can you imagine for somebody to be complaining about that?
Right.
That you gave me
You
everything.
didn't
That
teach me how to struggle.
that you spoon fed me so much that today, when I need to actually go out and do something, I can't do it. I don't know how.
I
I'm
think there's
not
going to be a lot of people, right, coming now, getting to adults who are going to be in that. You didn't teach me how to struggle,
Yeah,
right?
right. And I think, and this is not what's talked about, because most of the times when people come out and talk, they're talking about how they were abused or how they were maltreated or how they were neglected, or how, their childhood was not good. And so that's why I feel my story is different, because my childhood was not bad in that sense, but it was hard because now that I think of it, I think of moments. They say that no matter how many good moments you've had in your life, but somebody says one bad thing, or somebody does one bad thing, and you remember that for the rest of your life, and you
That's true.
forget the 10,000 good things they've said or done. you know and so when I was in this phase, everything negative was coming out. It's my mother's fault, it's my father's fault, this is what I did because of them. They didn't teach me this, they didn't uh, protect me here. What happened to me at the age of 14 was practically, not my fault, it was their fault. They didn't protect me. Then they engaged me to this guy. Why does a woman need a man to survive? Even today, sometimes when I get upset, I'm like, why do a woman need? I am okay, I can survive on my own, I don't need my husband. Like, this is what we women, when we get emotional, say,
Yeah.
right? That we don't need men, and we're sufficient on our own. And I am efficient and sufficient on my own. I am intelligent, I can work. I mean, I can do everything that my husband can do, even better, right? So all that was coming out, and it was coming out against my parents, right? And I was repeating some of the things my mother used to do. Some of the things, my mother had anger issues, although she loved us a lot, but she did have anger issues. She did get frustrated very easily, she did get overwhelmed very easily, she was very dominating. And I think she was doing exactly what I was doing. Now I get that. You see, with us strong women, the thing is, because we're so strong and we're taught to be strong, and we've been so strong for so long, that we have this pressure to show to the world, oh, we have everything in control.
Yeah.
So we don't allow people to see us vulnerable. So we're like, we're like those men who don't cry. So what do men do when they go in depression or anxiety? They get angry,
Yeah.
right? They don't cry. Men don't cry. Women cry. So what about women like us, who in the back of our mind are seeing or feeling that if I cry, it means I'm weak? What
Right.
are we doing?
Yeah.
We're fighting back. And who are we fighting back? We're fighting back these men. And that's what my mother was doing. And all her aggression was basically her frustration, and then her traumas. we always, I mean, I all the time grew up listening to her stories of her talking about that little boy she raised because she missed him. She loved him so dearly.
Well, she had him for 6 years.
Is a long time. And even that boy right now is not doing normal. He's my cousin, right? He's not very good. He's okay, but his life got affected too. Imagine a 6-year-old boy, all of a sudden somebody comes, the aunt comes and says, oh, this is not your mother. I'm your mother.
Right.
And your mother is actually your aunt. Imagine, I
The
mean,
poor little guy.
there you go. Right? So all my life I grew up listening to those stories. So there was a point in time when I was resenting that, okay, she misses him. What about us? Where are we? Where am I in her life? Why doesn't she just move on? Why doesn't she forget it? It's over. It's gone. She's talking about stories 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? She's still stuck there. She's still talking about, I can't forgive this person. I can't forgive that person. She has so much resentment and anger against those people who had hurt her, right? And I would look at that and I would blame her and not seeing the fact that, she wasn't getting the therapy or the support that she needed, right? And people around her were not equipped, and she herself was not equipped. It was not her fault.
Right.
She was trying to do her best, and she did do her best. She did her very best. And when I saw that I was repeating those patterns, when I had my daughters, I had postpartum depression both the times. I started seeing how I was holding on to anger. I started seeing how I was holding on to, oh, your sister said this, and she said this 2 years ago. But even like after 2 years ago, I'm holding on to it. Oh, I'm not going to talk to her because she said this to me.
Right.
This is how she treated me, right? Okay. And and after my second pregnancy, after my second postpartum depression, I had actually literally lost it. And that's when I went to see a therapist. And that's the first time I actually talked about what had happened prior to my marriage. For so long, we've been quiet about it. Things happen in our lives, to our children, to our family members. We try to ignore it and move on. We
Yeah.
provide the support we can, and we move on, and we know, okay, it's just a 14-year-old or a 19-year-old girl, and now she will become a doctor, and now she will have a career, and now she will get married and have her children, and she'll be okay. Right? It doesn't happen that way. And when I went to that therapist, and everything came out, everything, of course, and she was a very good one. And that's where she was like, that, Hina, this is what betrayal trauma is like. This is where you're feeling that you've been taken advantage of, and that's where it all made sense. And so I had to start from forgiving myself first, and I had to start from forgiving my parents. I mean, there was no forgiving. I mean, not that I held them responsible in any way, but there was this resentment. When I talk about forgiving them, what I mean basically is that I had decided not to become like them. And not that doesn't mean that they were bad. When we say I don't want to repeat what my mother did, it doesn't mean that she was a bad person and I don't want to become like her. I believe 90% of me is like her. This personality of mine is like her. This outspoken person is 90% her. This confident person is 90% her.
But you get to choose which parts of her, right?
Yeah. And then my father was the complete opposite, because when one partner becomes dominant, the other partner automatically submits, right? My father was a gentleman. He is a gentleman. Such a sweet person, I've never seen a more patient man like him. Okay. So, and a lot of times people, maybe our society, sees it as weakness, but it's not weakness. He stood by his woman, by his wife. That's strength. And that's the strength I see in my husband too. A man who stands by his partner, seeing that she's struggling, trusting her and helping her find,
Right.
like he could have easily left me. He could have easily said, oh, I can't deal with it. To hell with it. My father could have easily left my mother. I mean, these men have options. They do. They didn't, right? And so my father, so once I started healing, and then I did this NLP and I started utilizing all these tools. I was like, who do I want to be? Who am I? Like, of course, I have something of my mother. Of course, I have something of my father. Of course, I have something from my uncles and aunts. But who am I as myself? Who do I
Right.
want to be? And once I was able to decide that this is who I want to be, and then I was able to decide what characteristics this person needs to have. What are the things I need to remove from this person? What are the things I need to add? I want my father's patience. I want my father's humbleness. I want my father's honesty. He was a very honest man. Okay. And want my mother's naturally confidence and her intellect, her. She was a powerful woman. She is. She still is. And now, like they say, when you grow up and when you become a mother, that's when you see your mother's sacrifices,
Right.
right? I never miscarried, but when I hear other people's stories, and when I actually, because now as a coach, I'm literally going into the depth of their pain, I go like, I never asked my mother how she felt.
Right.
I am complaining that she's crying about that son that she lost, the son that she did not give birth to, but she was raising, the alive son, the living son. But I never asked her, what about that? What about before? What about the time when she lost those three kids? What was happening to her then? What
Right.
was happening to her physically? What was happening to her mentally? Why did she eventually become the person that she became?
We spend a lot of time thinking about why we're upset, right? Without looking at the, oh, but so there's another side to everything, you
There is.
know? So you went through that so you found your way back out and you started working with your clients in this NLP and coaching. And do you use NLP a lot in your coaching?
Of course, that's all I use. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
NLP is powerful. Let me tell what NLP is. It's neuro linguistic programming. So, neuro is the mind, linguistic is the language, and programming is like how we use that language to influence the way we think, the way we process and store information. So, say everything that we're thinking, whether it's something related to the past or the future, our brain has a library where it has this all this information stored, right? So from the day we're born, there's this bombardment of information, stuff that we're seeing, stuff that we're hearing, feeling, whether it's externally touch or internal, and then of course taste and smell, and it's all getting stored. Some of it, I mean, it gets filtered, but it's still, some of it is there. Like, how is it like you eat a food right now and all of a sudden you remember, oh, my grandmother used to cook like that.
Right.
This tastes just like my grandmother. Why? What happened? It took you back. And now you can actually taste what her food tasted like. You actually are thinking of her. She comes in your mind. You're actually seeing her. What if I tell you, think of the last time you celebrated Christmas, or our Christmas as a child? What will happen? You'll bring it all back. You'll relive it. You can see it. You can see the colors. You can smell maybe the candles, maybe the perfume, the food. You can even taste it. You can remember, oh, my aunt said this. Oh,
Right.
the kids were playing. They were laughing. Oh, this plate broke, and you actually remember that. You remember you heard this, something breaking, and you went into the kitchen and you saw, somebody was clumsy and broke something. What's happening? It's pictures, sounds, and taste, feeling. The five senses are engaged. The same thing happens with our negative experiences, right? And the same thing happens when we're creating futures. What if I fail? What are we doing when we're thinking, what if I fail? We're actually imagining us failing.
Right.
We're actually imagining some people making fun of us. We're actually imagining going out and making a fool out of us ourselves, right? We're actually seeing it. We're actually hearing it. We're actually hearing people making fun of us.
So,
Oh,
so in NLP, you can, I guess
we
you can
change this.
you can change the story that you keep playing.
Yeah.
Oh, so nice. That's
Right.
very good.
You can replace them, right? You can replace them. You can, if you're seeing yourself as failing, imagine yourself, see yourself going up there and getting that trophy, or people giving you a standing ovation.
It must take some practice. If you've practiced the negative a long time, it must take some practice to change
Yeah,
it to the
and
positive.
that's why we do it. So basically that coaching session is that.
Right.
It's making them go through that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why my sessions are normally 60 to 90 minutes. The reason being because it's not just talk therapy. You come and you share. You come and you share. We find out what is that one thing that you're struggling with. And then there are these processes. There's behavior generator process. There's belief change process. There are a lot of different processes. So basically they were created by these people who examined or who studied people who are already doing well in their fields.
Right.
It's NLP is basically a study of excellence. It's modeling excellence. So if we have this person who's doing very well in life, who's very successful, how did he reach there? What did he do? What
Right.
kind of language does he use? How does he motivate himself? When he fails, what does he do? When people come and make fun of him, what does he do? What has he done in life to be at the position he is? And so we're replicating that in our life.
And I guess you used that to create your Be Your Own Hero project. Is that
So
the
be your own hero project is basically, it's a 6-month program of mine in which I cover four pillars. Okay. One is confidence, because trauma survivors, the number one thing is they feel they're not good enough. They are doubting themselves. Number two is safety. They don't feel safe. Okay. Whatever they're doing because they want to feel safe. Number three is they don't feel worthy. Why are we here? What's my purpose? People don't love me. What so to feel worthy of living, of being loved, that self-esteem. That's the third pillar. And the fourth pillar that I work with is being in control. In control, setting boundaries, being able to say yes or no, or making those behavioral changes, habits, anger,
right?
how to control it, how to identify it, how to identify those triggers and replace it. Say, I'm just giving an example. The color red is a trigger and it reminds you of something bad that happened in your life. And then you respond, you react. So what maybe the green color reminds me of a beautiful doll my mother gave me, and it makes me feel calm and it makes me feel loved, right? And so I can replace that with that green color, so that every time I feel okay, now I'm getting angry, I imagine that doll, I imagine being loved, I imagine being in that surrounding, so I can calm myself down.
Right.
So it's like basically when you're in your negative state of mind, you want to switch it into a positive state of
Right.
mind.
And I know a coach who, one of his things that he says is, you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts, and you can choose your thoughts. But sometimes we feel like we don't have control. But I guess it's just practicing
Yeah.
exercising that so that, and I mean, I can see that's something that you would want help with. And like, that's why your program is 6 months.
Yes.
I could
6 months.
see, because it does take a long time to use those muscles of control that we've never practiced before, right?
So my 6 months is also because trauma is something so personal,
Mm,
private, that a lot of people wouldn't want to do it in a group
group.
setting.
Yeah.
So I have one session is like a group where it's like a teaching session where I'm telling them and talking about it, whatever that day's topic is, and then I do a one-on-one, which is private,
Right.
because your issue may be different from the other person's issue. Although you both want to feel confident, but of course the way you feel confident, your definition of confidence will be different from their definition of confidence.
Right.
So that's why it's so long, number one thing. But number two thing, I also do 6 weeks. My smaller ones are 6 weeks, which are very personalized. They're one-on-ones, they're not group, and so it's you can just simply go onto my website. It's very easy, healwithhina.com, and all the information is there. Just wanted to add one thing. Heather, you were talking about you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I tell to people a lot, and which they love hearing, and so I was like, I can repeat it again. Your thoughts, whatever you're thinking, is a story. Everything you think, everything you see, everything you're feeling is actually a story, right? So say Anne Frank's story, the Holocaust that happened, was very terrible. It was a very bad thing. It shouldn't have happened. It was very traumatic. Still, even right now, when wars happen, when
Mm-hmm.
school shootings happen, when earthquakes come, imagine what the people who are going through. It's horrendous. It's traumatic. But what is it for us? It's a story.
Yeah.
Where we open up the news channel, it's just a 15-minute story that comes. Okay, you open up the book Anne Frank's diary, it's a story. You read it, you close it. You watch a movie, somebody's autobiography, any movie. So you're lost in it so much. Sometimes you cry with them, with those characters. You laugh with those characters. Sometimes you stay in those stories for a few days. How many times it happens? Those books are so good that even after you finish reading, you're still in that book for a few days.
Right.
But then what happens? You move on.
It's still a story.
So our life is also a story. Our thoughts is a story. So we have the control, the choice to close that chapter. We have the choice to shut off that TV. If we're hearing things, oh, this is what my mother said, this is what my father said, this is what this person said, we have the choice to mute it, to turn it off.
Right.
And those are, it's basically a habit, like you teach a child to tie their shoelace. Practice. They do it 10 times, it becomes a habit. Now you can tie a shoelace without even looking. Yes or no?
Yeah.
It becomes a habit.
Right. So 6 weeks, 6 months. And I guess people should, I'm thinking of, so people are listening might think, oh, no, my life was, I'm fine. But if you feel like there's even the something, can they contact you with
Of course.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. So there is, I mean, there's a free catharsis session. It's a 45-minute one. I can share that link, with you maybe, and you
yeah,
can
we
share
can
it with
put it in the
people.
show notes.
Yeah, so it's just for people to come and just talk to me, share their story. Uh, so coaching is a little different from therapy, okay? I know people think that therapy or counseling or these things are basically for people who may be actually suffering, or maybe may feel that there's something wrong with them, right? What is coaching like? Coaching is when you have a personal trainer or you have a coach for a sports team. What are they doing? They are making sure that their players are equipped and trained to go out in the field and play that game. They teach them strategies, they make sure that they're well fed, they make sure that they do their exercises, but they never go out and play for them. Same as with the personal trainer. They would look at your profile and then tell you what exercises to do, but they won't never lift weights for you.
No.
Right? That is what we, us coaches, do. So we're not just going out there and telling you, oh, we're treating your depression and we're going to make your trauma go away. What we're doing is we're just showing you how to navigate through it.
Yeah,
And everybody's navigation pathway will be different. It cannot be similar. And I mean, you define you want to be happy. Your definition of happiness is different from mine. So there is no way I can tell you, oh, Heather, go ahead, go out and play with friends or go out and watch a movie and it'll make you happy. Maybe it doesn't.
right,
Maybe watching a movie is my thing, but it's not yours. So my job as a coach is to help you find what makes you happy.
right. That's awesome. And yes, we're going to include the links to your website and all of the things so that they can find you. And I mean, I always encourage people to, if it feels like something in your life isn't working right, coaching is definitely to help you. It's like the performance coach was a great example. They're to help you perform better in your life, whatever it is you want to do with your life. So before we say goodbye, I always ask my guests, if you had a final word of wisdom for people, what would it be?
Yes. Um, so I did talk about this in another show as well. Um, if your parents have done something wrong, and if they realize it, and if they come and apologize, and if they want to come and mend, please apologize them. Please forgive them, sorry. Because the reason I'm saying this is because I talked about this in another show, and the lady there was like, yeah, but sometimes parents can be very toxic. And I was like, I understand that, but the parents who are toxic, they don't realize that they're toxic. I'm talking about those parents who understand that what they're doing is not right. Maybe they're they're that's how they are, and they can't change. But there are a lot of parents I know who have come to me whose children don't speak to them,
Right,
who haven't seen their children and grandkids for ages, and they say, we call our kids, we apologize, we say, I'm very sorry, we know what we did was wrong when you were little, and the kids don't want to speak to us. So just my 2 cent would be that if your parent feels that what they did was wrong, even if you don't want them back in your life, it's fine. If you feel they're too toxic, but you can at least have a talking, working relationship. If they're calling you, listen to them. If they're apologizing, we teach our kids to apologize, right?
yeah.
So if our parents are apologizing and they want to have a relationship, give them that chance. Let them into your house and say hi. That's it. Just for Christmas, maybe. Just go and meet them somewhere outside. If you're not comfortable inviting them home, go and meet them outside. Because when you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and you're alone, it's hard. And I've seen parents crying.
Right.
I've seen parents crying, and I'm not saying that what children go through is it justifies what they did to their kids. It doesn't mean that, but then at some point we have to be a little better, right? If they didn't know any better, we know.
And I think that if people try to change, you should allow them that
Or even
space.
help them if you can.
Yeah, or help them. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Hina. So much good information for everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. My friends out in podcast land, definitely check the show notes if you want to connect with Hina. What did you call it? You called it,
Heal with Hina.
no, what's the name of the call?
Oh, it's going to be free catharsis. It's going to be a Calendly link.
Oh, catharsis.
Yes.
That was the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Right.
excellent. So if you're not sure, just have a conversation. That's the best way to find information, right?
There you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And my friends in podcast land, you take care. Take care of yourselves. And we'll see you next time.